In this video, I'm going to talk about exactly how much money you need to start copy trading. I'm going to cover some common misconceptions which may surprise a lot of you and which may reveal why you haven't been successful copy trading. Because if you're not starting with enough money and your buy size is too small, it makes copy trading almost impossible. From the understanding you are going to get from everything that you are going to learn in this video, you will be able to double or even triple your chances at success in copy trading. And in the end of the video, I'll show you exactly what you can do if you don't have a lot of money and you do have to start copy trading with a very small amount and very small buys. Let's get right into it. So I talk to a lot of guys on Discord every week, maybe 20 to 30 guys a week. So I'm able to see common patterns in the copy trading space. And one thing I see a lot is that most of the guys who are struggling, they are starting with a very small amount of money. And there's a reason for this. Like many things in life, it takes money to make money. And copy trading is much easier when you have a lot of it. And the main reason for this is simply because of fees. So I'm gonna jump to a little presentation that I've created for you guys. And it's gonna break down everything and show exactly what buy sizes will correlate with what kind of percentage gain after fees. And it's gonna really open your eyes to how if you're starting with a small amount of money, you really can't be copy trading like everyone else who has more money because it just won't work. So if you're in that place, you need to adjust your strategy and do different things in order to possibly get out of that small balance cycle that you're in. So then you can start buying with larger amounts and trading in different ways. Don't worry, I'm gonna break everything down for you really quickly. Okay, so first of all, what fees am I talking about? So when you copy trade and you use OdinBot, which is the fastest copy trading bot, so I don't really see any alternative other than to use OdinBot, and the fees are not much higher than any other bots. Every bot will have fees, but you need to balance the speed with the fees, and I think OdinBot does a perfect job of that. If you have never used it, there is a link in the description below to the real OdinBot that will get you set up very quickly. And if you haven't already, guys, drop a like on this video because it will really help the algorithm and will really help a lot of other copy traders out there get this information. So here's the fee breakdown when you copy trade. So first of all, you have a buy and a sell fee anytime you buy and anytime you sell. Now this buy and sell fee is adjustable. So in OdinBot, you can use standard, which is very fast, and that's 0.002 per buy and per sell. You can use turbo, which is even faster, and that's 0.008, or you can use godly, which is the fastest speed, which is 0.06, and that's quite a lot of money to pay every time you buy and every time you sell. Every bot allows you to choose your fees. The more you pay, the faster you get in. And in copy trading, getting in fast is extremely important. Turbo is usually enough to get you into the trade within the same second as your mirror, but standard also can do that many times, and if not, you'll get in the next candle at a pretty good price. The next fees you have are the OdinBot trading fees that you actually pay to OdinBot. These buy and sell fees, they are what allows the transaction to happen at a certain speed on the network. OdinBot does not get this money, but there are OdinBot trading fees because they need to pay for their private nodes, pay for their team, and cover their operating costs. So anytime you buy and anytime you sell, 1% of the buy amount and 1% of the sell amount goes to OdinBot. So you don't pay anything out of pocket to use OdinBot. It's completely free, but they get a tiny amount of every buy and every sell. That's how they make money. So if you're buying with 0.1 Solana, that's 0.001 anytime you buy, and give or take 0.001 anytime you sell, depending on how much you are selling. If you double your money, then you're paying 0.002 when you sell. The third fee is a Jito tip that is optional. What a Jito tip is, it's basically a tip you can put on your buys to incentivize whoever is processing the transaction to choose your transaction over another one because they will make more money doing so. So the more you tip, the faster you usually will get in. However, for the case of this video, we'll just assume that we are not tipping because it's absolutely not necessary. And the fourth fee is a fee that sometimes you pay if you're trading on pump.fun. And that means anytime you trade on pump.fun, they take 1% of the buy and 1% of the sell as well to go towards the token's bonding curve. And if you don't know anything about this, don't worry about it. But most times when we're trading and copy trading on the Solana network, we will be trading pump fund coins. So I'm going to assume that these are going to be part of our everyday life, and they are going to be a part of the calculations in this video. So now let's look at some different buy sizes, and you'll see exactly why it's so important how much you are buying with in relation to your fees and in relation to your strategy. And I'll tell you that a lot of guys come in and it's fine, they don't have that much money, maybe they live in a smaller country, but they get into copy trading because they want the dream. They want to make thousands of dollars a day. They want to quit their job. They want to make a crazy amount of money while relaxing, sitting by the beach, so they can take care of their family and live the lifestyle they want. That's great. But a lot of guys come in and they only have like $20 to $50 to start, and they start buying with 0.05 Solana, which is right now roughly about $7 per trade. Sometimes people trade even less than that, and they absolutely get crushed and don't realize why. And it's simply because their buys are too small to keep up with the fees. The fees are eating away at their profits, and they're almost swimming against the current. Let me show you what I mean. So here's an example for 0.05 buys. These would be the buys and the sell fees to the network. These would be the Odinbot fees. In total, one buy, one sell would equate to 0.001. Let's assume we're not tipping. We have the pump fund fees, which are 0.001. So that brings us to 0.006 in total profits. That means if you are buying on the slowest speed on Odinbot, which is standard, and you're going to be spending about 0.006 per trade. That means that you are only profitable after you make 12% gains. Now, why is this? This is because you are losing 12% of your buy fee, of your buy amount, to fees. So this means if you have a 20% win, it's really only an 8% win because you're losing 12% to fees. And when you have a 20% loss, it's actually a minus 32% loss because you're taking that 20% loss minus the 12% you're losing to fees. So you can see how if you buy with this small amount, even on the slowest speed, you're going to be trying to climb up higher and build up your balance, but you're just going to be kept dragging down by fees. It's like swimming against an ocean current. You're trying to move forward, but you just keep moving backwards. And that's mainly because you come in and you find some real nice traders on our wallet drops. You open them up and you want to trade with them because they have a 92% win rate. They're making 16% per trade, but these are scalpers. So if you're making these small wins, even though you are winning, as we've seen here, you're going to still be losing. So if you have a 10% win, you've still lost 2%. And if you have a 10% loss, you've lost 22%. So the summary is, at these very small buy amounts, trying to trade with scalpers, it is much easier to lose money than to make money. You are making the copy trading game, which is already very difficult, even harder for yourself. Now this gets even worse if you're buying or copying someone who buys twice and sells more than once. So let's think about on average, let's say that they buy once and they sell twice on average, because this is very common. Sometimes they buy twice and sell 5 times. But just in this scenario, if they're buying once and selling twice, your fees are now 0.01 in total. That means you're only profitable when you make 20%. So a 20% win equates to you making no money, and a 20% loss equates to you losing 40%. So you can see how these small buy amounts are really almost impossible to succeed with. However, there are ways to do it. And in the end of this video, I will tell you how. If there's absolutely no way that you can buy with more than this, then you have, in my opinion, one option. But we'll get to that in a little bit. All right, let's look at 0.1 buys. And let's go into the assumption of one buy and one sell for the point of this video, because a lot of traders do buy once and sell once, and it's easy to find guys like that. So with 0.1 buys, you're going to be spending about 0.008 in total fees, which is going to eat away at about 8% of your profits. So you'll be profitable after an 8% gain. So you're still only making 12% on a 20% win, and you're losing 28% on a 20% loss. So a little bit better, a little more feasible. And for this buy amount, you'd probably be successful finding someone like this with an 80% ROI. After slippage, you'd probably be around 60, maybe 50, at which point if you get a 50% win, you're looking at about 38% profit after fees. With a 30% loss, you're looking at about minus 38% loss. So with a guy like that, you're just looking to win more than you lose essentially, and keep your stop loss pretty small. However, Still cutting it very close with 0.1 buys in my opinion. Wouldn't recommend it. So let's look at 0.2 buys. Okay, 0.2 buys, you're looking at 0.012 in fees because the buy and sell fees for Odinbot and Pump Fund are going up since you're buying more. But still, now you're looking at being profitable at about a 6% gain, which is not bad. This means with a 20% win, you'd be looking at plus 14%. With a 20% loss, you'd be looking at minus 26%. Ideally, you need a win rate of above 70% to really be profitable with a scalper. But if you can get your wins up to 30%, you're looking at 24% wins. Keep your losses small. Starts to become easier to win the game. So I'd say if you are going to be copying any sort of scalper, they need to have a pretty high ROI. So I wouldn't recommend a tight scalper who's at 10 or 20%. They need to probably be above 40 or 50. And you need to have at least 2% or 0.2 buys. This I would consider to be a good testing level. So anything above this, if you're testing someone, you're not going to get a real adequate look on how they're going to be because you'll be losing so much of your percentage to fees. But at 0.2, I like to test because I can really see, okay, is there any potential here? 0.3 buys get a little bit better, profitability at 5.5. But again, guys, there's fees. So, you're always going to be having to overcome the fees a little bit. And that, it's just something you have to accept in copy trading. There's fees in regular trading as well. So fees are fees. They're going to take a percentage of your wins. We're just trying to minimize how much. But again, if you're copying someone who buys a lot and sells a lot, then 0.3 buys starts to become troublesome again because with all the buys and the sells, the fees jump up to 0.024 and then you're losing 8% per trade, which I think I'd like to keep it ideally around 6% if I can. So we go to 0.4 buys, then we look, okay, we're getting better, even better, profitable at 5%. And this for me is ideal. If you're going to be copying a scalper with less than 30% ROI, then I think, it's got to be at least 0.4 buys. And that's on standard. Now, remember that, guys. That's on standard. That's with 0.002 fees. You're not even on turbo. If you were to go up to turbo, then again, 0.4 gets you above that 6% mark. You're at 8%, which is not that bad. But then you have to find guys with higher ROIs. It's a game. It's a game of balance. The lower your profitability needs to be, the less your fees are taking away from you, the lower the guy's ROI who you're copying needs to be. The more you're losing on fees, the more you need to win when it comes to the ROI. So you're going to need to look for guys with higher ROIs who are getting big wins, but we'll talk about this more in a little bit. You need to find the balance depending on what your strategy is and who you are copying. But most guys, the point of this video is most guys don't realize that. They try to copy a scalper who's making 20% ROI, and then even if they do somehow manage to be profitable with that guy, they are losing money still on fees. So let's look at turbo with 0.5 buys. So then you're coming down to 7%, not that bad. But let's look at turbo with 1 Solana buys. You jump all the way down to being profitable after only 4.6 gain. Now that's really, really good. Don't let these numbers here scare you too much because you're still losing 24% and only making 15% on 20% win versus loss. But you got to remember, if you're copying someone with a 90% win rate, then you're going to have a lot more of these wins to counteract these bigger losses. So that's another part of the game. So that's a big jump from 0.5 to 1. But for turbo, I think the minimum buy for a scalper would need to be 0.5. Again, if you're copy trading with someone who's not a scalper, who has bigger wins and who has a higher ROI, then you can get away with 0.4, possibly 0.3, but I would keep it at 0.4 and 0.5 when you get a little bit tighter. And then you can definitely copy a scalper with 1% with 1 sol buys, because you've got a really small margin and turbo is going to get you in nice and fast. So let's look real quick at Godly though. So Godly is crazy. It's 0.06 per buy and per sell. It gets you in crazy fast, but even 1 Solana buys, you start to lose profitability. You only become profitable. You start to lose profitability. You only become profitable after a 16% gain. So Godly, if you're going to use Godly, realistically, you need to be buying at least 3 Solana buys to copy someone who is not making an ROI above 50%, who's scalping and possibly has a high win rate, and who may be more of a scalper. I know this is a lot of information and a lot of numbers, but the point is that you just need to know that your fees are going to eat into your profit, and you can't be trading with a small amount of money and using a large amount of fees and not be aware that it's happening. Because even if you win, your balance is going to go down and you're going to be very frustrated and confused. So if you're going to trade guys with higher win rates and moderate ROIs who are scalping more, that's fine. It's a very good strategy. If they're scalping really small amounts, it's not a good strategy. Don't recommend that at all. But that's a whole nother topic for another video. But just try to keep your profitability level after fees to around 7% or lower. Just try to avoid 16%. If you can get it down to under 5%, that's fantastic. But what you can do is buying with 0.05 buys and buying with guys who buy once and sell more than once and not being profitable even if you make 20%. And I know some guys who are even using turbo with 0.05 buys, so they're not profitable until they make 35%. And it's just almost impossible to make money like that. However, if you do only have a small amount of money and you need to use 0.05 buys, there is something that you can do. And that's if you have small money, you need to go for big wins. So what I mean is if we look at the same chart essentially, and we look at bigger wins like 200% or 1000%, then you see even with profitability only happening after a 12% gain, you're still making 188% on a 200% win and 988% on a 1000% win. So that becomes absolutely negligible. That will only eat away at your profits when you're winning 20% or 30%. And when you're going for bigger wins, you can have bigger losses, bigger stop losses, and you'll only be losing 62% compared to 50. So it's not as dramatic. So if you're trading with 0.05 or even 0.1 Solana, in my opinion, you really need to be trading with guys like this, guys who they're not scalping. They lose a lot of tokens, yes, but when they win big. They hit like a 10x here, they hit a 33x here, they hit a 500% here. I'm pretty sure they hit another 13x here. So you got all these losses, and then you've got these huge wins. And you can most certainly be profitable with guys like this with a small amount of money. So anyone who's trading with a small amount of money, my recommendation is simply to go for traders who have huge wins. They have a lot of losses, but they have huge wins. Because if you're buying with 0.05, then you've got your 0.006 in total. Let's say you're losing 50% on all the losing trades. So every time you lose, you're losing 0.031. That's not a big deal. You could lose 10 trades and lose 0.31 Solana. You can lose 20 trades in a row and only lose 0.62 Solana. And if you just get that 120x win, then you're going to make 1 Solana, countering all your little losses and getting that big win. If it's a 33x like that one guy had, then you're going to be making around 1.6 Solana. So you might lose 20 trades, you might lose 0.6 Solana, but then you go ahead and you make 1.6 Solana. So you're 1 Solana in profit, and that's all with really small buys. It's not a bad strategy at all. But if you're trying to scalp with really small buys, you are going to get crushed. So let's look at a quick recap. So 0.05 to 0.1 buys. You can only trade guys, in my opinion, who get big wins only. Avoid the scalpers. If you're going to try for scalpers or more moderate ROI traders, then I would use 0.2 for testing purposes only. I would use 0.2 to 0.3 with standard fees only, or else it may eat away into your profits too much. 0.4 or more, I think you can get away with turbo fees, definitely above 0.5. And as soon as you go above 2 Solana per buy, you can experiment with using godly fees. Even though I don't think it's necessary, I would just personally use turbo fees plus maybe a Jito tip. So that begs the question, which is the last part of this video. This is quite a long video, but this information is so important. So how much money do you need to start with in your balance? Now, this is an old wallet of mine, but let's think about it, guys and girls. If we need to be able to last 10 to 20 trades to get one of these big wins if we're buying with very small amounts, then we need at least 1 Solana to start with. Because if we start with something like 0.2 Solana and we can only buy this much, after 8 trades, all our money is going to be gone. And the 9th trade might be this big win. So if you really want to give it a go and you find a guy who hits a big win on average every 10 to 20 trades, then you need to be able to hang with him and absorb the losses until you get that big win. And if you're scalping, then we've already spoken about, then you need at least 0.3 buys. So if you've got only 0.3 in your wallet, then you've got enough for 1 buy. And I don't even think Odinbot is going to buy that. So you've got to have at least 1 Solana in your wallet to start. But that's not going to be really enough, in my opinion. I think that's the absolute bare minimum. It's my rule of thumb, and this is just my rule of thumb. You can do whatever you want, that you should have at least 10 times your buy size in your portfolio to start. So if you want to do 0.3 Solana buys, I would start with 3 Solana, because, you know, when you lose, you're maybe going to lose 25%. You want to be able to last a long time, to test traders out, to find a winning solution, a winning trader, a winning setup. And it might take a few weeks to get there, and you don't want to run out of money before you do that. So again, if you're trading with someone who's profitable over 100 transactions in the trade simulator, then you've got to be able to hang with him for at least 100 transactions. In this case, this is 32 trades. That's all he's done so far. But over those 32 trades, with very low slippage, you could make 25%. Probably with a higher slippage, you could make maybe 10 to 15%, including fees. We cover all the fees spent in these simulators. In order to realistically achieve that, you need to be able to hang with him for 100 transactions or 32 trades. And you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. But what can't happen is that you trade with him 3 times. He has a little bit of a cold streak, and then you're out of money. You need a cushion. So here's what I recommend, guys. Minimum 1 Solana to start. Ideally 3 Solana to start if you can. And if money is not too much of an issue for you, like you've got a lot of money saved up and you want to try out copy trading, then I suggest starting out with something like $1,000 or 5 to 7 Solana. That will give you a really nice starting cushion to work slowly towards profitability. So that's it, guys. That's a pretty long video. So thanks for making it through. And now that you have this information, now that you know this, you are so much more ahead of the game. You'll be able to succeed and come up with a strategy that works based on your budget. And if you're not yet at the point where you have 1 to 3 Solana to start, then, you know, no rush. Just take your time, save money up, money that you can't afford to lose, and start when you are ready. Until then, just practice, shadow trade, and continue learning. As always, check out copytrader.com for all of our full in-depth courses and for the best analytics tools on the Solana network. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.